All right, guys, what's going on? This is Aaron Simpkins, your host of the True Strength Life podcast. I'm back with another episode, another interview today with a special guest, Angel Quiroz. I said that right, brother?
Absolutely.
Quiroz. So I found out about you, I think, on the Grow the Heck Up page. Am I?
hmm
Yeah, that's probably where I saw you.
Yeah,
And I
I
don't
actually
remember.
had voice on my podcast, and that's actually how I found you because I saw that you interviewed him as well.
Okay, yeah, cool. I was just gonna say that. Yeah, yeah, him and I talked for a long time. Uh, yeah, I saw you and started looking more into your stuff. And to be honest, when it comes to a Christian talking about politics, you were one of the people that I like the most because I feel like I'm so concerned about losing my Christian witness when it comes to talking about politics. That's why I almost don't a lot.
Right.
And because I just purely based off of how divisive of a topic it can be. Um, but listening to you, I feel like you do a really, really good job at that.
Thank you, man.
So, um, as we get started, just give kind of like a brief, intro of who you are, what you do, what you're about, and
For
all
sure.
that, and then we can jump into it.
For sure. So my name is Angel Quiroz. I'm up here in New Jersey, in the Northeast region. What I do is I pretty much have a podcast that discusses where Christianity and politics intersect. Sometimes that's in the culture, sometimes that's in the realm of the Christian church, sometimes it's in other areas, sports, stuff like that. So I really like to tackle different topics, not from a position of hitting people or kind of dismantling people, but more so dismantling arguments, dismantling ideas. So I like to attack ideas and not attack people, and that's
Hmm.
kind of one of the fundamental things that I've decided to kind of make my, I guess, my MO, my kind of overarching theme for whatever content I make. Of course I'm going to mention names and stuff like that, but really the podcast is more so about the ideas of that we're experiencing in our culture today and how they relate to biblical principles, whether they're for them or against them, and then we discuss those topics.
Cool. Yeah, that's good. That's one thing. As I've been into Christian apologetics for a couple of years, and I remember way back in the beginning when I was learning, just memorizing different things that they talk about quite often. You always heard the idea of make sure you're taking apart the idea and the principle, but not the person.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start attacking the person, then you their soul is more important than you winning a debate. So as soon as you start attacking that person, then you just most likely lost them for anything else you have to say.
Yeah, I think context is really important, right? As far as the way the discussion is taking place. So if I'm talking to somebody on a podcast, like Ben Shapiro lays this out pretty well, and I think it applies to us as Christians mainly because let's say I'm on somebody on a leftist podcast and we're discussing ideas of whether marriage is good or not. My goal is not necessarily to convince the podcast host because they have a platform which is built on this other idea that's opposed to biblical standards. So my goal in that situation is to convince the audience that my ideas are better. And the way that's going to be most effective is not by roasting the guests, but by really convincing them with arguments that are sound and that are logical, as opposed to, let's say, some sort of roast battle like what Candace Owens does a little bit. That's not something that I really want to be part of, which is why I kind of find the meme culture of the right to become kind of increasingly toxic and not as useful as it once was.
Hmm. That's interesting. I obviously I see that online a lot. The
Yeah.
the what'd you call it? The meme culture of roasting everybody. Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
the meme culture of
Yeah.
like the right wing politics, the I guess what is the Pepes of the world and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was all in good fun, and I think there was a place for it. I guess back when when our political ideology was sitting in the White House, but nowadays it's not really doing any good. It's more so just poking fun at things that aren't really funny anymore. Like the degradation of marriage, the way manhood is being kind of shamed in our culture today. Those aren't really things that should be made fun of. They should be topics that we really address seriously and try and try and come up with some sort of solution. And I think that the meme culture came at a time where everything was so tense that you wanted just some sort of relief. You want to just poke fun and laugh. But I think that comes from a place of nihilism. I think it's a very cynical way to look at the world where everything is a joke. Short of being a comedian, I don't think that's a healthy way for an actual thinker, somebody that's actually putting out political content and putting out ideas for a living. I don't think that's a great way to engage with an audience and then have it be successful.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I know, just going about everyday life, I can fall into that sometimes.
Yeah, me too, man.
Fall into that trap of oh, this idea is just so far out there. I'm just gonna even if it's just to myself in my head, I'm just gonna make fun of it.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to fall into that.
I mean, I'll mention like Lavoisier because you had him on your podcast too. When he came on my podcast, he said something that like spoke to my the deepest parts of me because it was so relevant on this subject. He was like, it might be cool on the right or in Republican circles to call somebody retarded, but does that really represent Jesus to somebody who might be a leftist who has a child with mental illness? Does that really accurately represent the heart of God for those people? And I thought about it and I was like, yeah, there's a place for like roasting people and a place for like, doing these clapbacks, but I don't think it always represents God. And I think that's why, like you were mentioning before we started recording, your Christian witness is super important when you're in politics. It's probably more important because you're now put, regardless of whether you want to or not, you're now held up as this example of your faith and you kind of speak for everybody because of the way identity politics is taken over. Is like, okay, so you identify as a Christian, so now you speak for all Christians, and that becomes this weight on your shoulders, and all we can do as Christians is kind of reflect and deject and say like, I am depraved, I am wretched, and God is the only one that's good. I'm in need of salvation just like anybody else, but we're here to discuss ideas, not necessarily my flaws or your flaws, because we both have flaws, but we're here to discuss the things that are actually true, objective truth, objective morality, things like that.
Yeah. And a lot of this talk gets interesting when even what you just said, things like objective truth, objective morality, and you said earlier, using logic, using reasoning. A lot of times we're debating or having these conversations with people that don't really actually believe in any of those things.
Yeah.
So it's weird to try to be like to use logic to build up an argument to say like, here's my presentation, here's why it makes sense. When they don't even believe in that to begin with. It's like this. We've gotten to this weird world where words mean everything, but they mean nothing.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. And that's so unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it because I heard this incredibly fascinating interview. Michael Knowles had somebody on his channel. Michael Knowles is an anchor for the Daily Wire. And they were talking about why the left kind of responds to this idea of a gender fluidity and, the transgender movement and stuff like that. And he broke it down in a way I'd never heard before, which is, I forget who he quoted, but he was talking about this idea that things in the world today are like a carbon copy, right? So they're a copy of a copy of a copy. So he uses the example of strawberries. Maybe somebody who's a child will pick a wild strawberry out, eat it, and be like, wow, that's delicious. And then they'll grow up and they'll manufacture a perfect amount of strawberries so that all of the strawberries that you taste just like that one wild strawberry. And then somebody else will take that bunch of wild strawberries that are now modified to be perfect and synthesize it to be like a strawberry flavored candy, in like let's say a Jolly Rancher strawberry flavor. And then somebody will take the Jolly Rancher strawberry flavor and make a soda out of the Jolly Rancher, out of the perfect strawberries, out of the wild strawberry.
That sounds banging.
And it sounds delicious, don't get me wrong. But then a child comes up and drinks the strawberry soda and goes, that tastes amazing, but it doesn't taste anything like the wild strawberry that I had before, right? So now we're so detached from what is actually real that anything can be real, right? And that's what kind of leftists are falling victim towards with gender and sexuality, where, you know, the free love movement has made it so that, you know, gender is like a suggestion. This is back in the 60s, and, you know, it's just all about love, man. And so now you have a copy of a woman who's copying a woman who's copying a woman, and you're all of a sudden detached from the biological necessity that a woman is a person who is a being created that way with the uterus, made to provide life, and instead they're looked at as like a function of society, right? So women aren't anything biological. They're just a way you exist. And so now you can just exist as a woman if you decide that, or you can exist as a man if you decide that, but it has nothing to do with biology anymore. And I found that really really telling and really interesting, because it's not many times that I've seen somebody on the right be able to articulate leftist views and make me be like, oh, I totally get it. I empathize now. And I think that one thing that he said that was profound was that you can learn and understand things without agreeing with them. And I think that's super important, especially if you're a Christian. You have to learn and understand atheism. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. And you have to learn and understand communism. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. But by educating yourself in that way, you're setting up to reinforce your own faith, reinforce the things that you believe, and reinforce your ability to connect with somebody empathetically as a Christian, because now you know where they come from and why they come from that place.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
I'm talking your ear off, man. Sorry.
No, it's good. Yeah, I mean, hey, you're the guest. It's the whole point for you to talk. No, that's good. And you're a way better talker than I am anyway. So,
no, man. You're a natural.
So the yeah, so to know and to understand something, or someone's idea, or where they're coming from, and then to just that idea to just disagree with it, that thinking is something that I've only really realized in like the past year.
Yeah.
And where and it was, quite honestly, it was I think it again was something I might have learned from Lavoisier. Because his mental game is so sharp.
Absolutely.
And I was just thinking, the way I came to that conclusion in my mind was, I was thinking of how there's so much talk of you know, race and different colors and this and that, and then I was like, but how is it that we live in, you know, supposedly, you know, I'm air quoting, a racist world, especially a racist country, but yet I as a white guy learned from a black guy that I can have a lot more freedom of mind than I have already. and because it literally was like a freeing conclusion, like a freeing thought. It was like, wow, I can actually literally think whatever I want. I'm allowed to disagree with whatever I want. Now, I mean, I should have a conviction to truth. I should have a conviction to what is biblically correct and moral and right, or maybe there's some times where there's not even a totally right, but just a better. I should have convictions to all of those things. But that being said, like, just because somebody over here thinks that their way is way better, or whatever it is they're thinking, I can just be like, I disagree.
Yeah, I love what you pointed out, man, about maybe there's not a completely great, but there's definitely a better. And I think that's something that we miss in the idea of politics. What the left does a lot is they'll structure things to where if it's not utopia, then the idea is wrong, right? And that is something that I think as Christians we learn to deal with, because we learn to go through our testimony, be able to assess where we were in life and where we are now, and say, like, God did so much in my life. My life is so much better. Is my life perfect? No, but it's better, and it's objectively better. Like, God in Scripture, God uses the word good, and it was good. He doesn't say and it was perfect, right? Because there's essentially no such thing on earth that's perfect, but in heaven there is, right? So the idea that we can somehow attain this perfection and that we should always be constantly combating the things that are here because they're not perfect is kind of a what's the word? It's kind of like a dog chasing his own tail. You're just never gonna catch it, and so, or if you do, you don't know what to do with it, like the Joker said, right? But that's an amazing point that you bring up. I think that a lot of what happens in politics is everybody's desire to become perfect, when in reality all we really need to do is just get a little bit better with every little policy, every little a communication, or every little conversation. We just need to strive to get that inch better. And I think what the left does is they try and strive for utopia instead of trying to strive for better.
Yeah, and that fails. That fails, especially biblically, because we know that we understand, understanding the Bible, that an earthly utopia is not possible. It's not going to happen. So why are we always trying to shoot for that and making a bunch of stuff worse on the way, instead of just, like you said, making it better step by step? Yeah, that's interesting. So that being said, now I'm kind of thinking to step back a little bit.
Sure.
Your page, your about page, starts with liberal atheist to Christian conservative.
Yeah.
So tell me how that kind of happened, and then how people around you responded to that.
Sure. So I think the response was a little harsh because the process was really slow. So I was a liberal atheist when I was 21. I'm 32 now. So when I was 21, 22.
I just turned 30.
Yeah. Hey, man, welcome to the club. Your 30s are great. You're going to love them. Trust me. But I think the reason people reacted so, like, what's the word? Just like viciously towards me coming out as a conservative and starting to post conservative content was because everybody knew I was a Christian, but politics wasn't in the mainstream until a little bit before Trump got elected. Politics was not pop culture until Trump put on the MAGA hat, and you starting to see girls in bikinis wearing MAGA hats and stuff like that. Like, that's when it was like, okay, this is a phenomenon. This is something else. And so people felt the need to either go into it or fight back against it, and then all these things happened. But from atheist, I was an atheist kind of by default. I grew up Roman Catholic. My parents didn't go to church much. Christmas and Easter, or little things like that. Went to Catholic school, but all that meant was that now I was rebelling against school and God, which both those together, and I felt like I was in the right. I felt like I'm rebelling against the establishment. Yeah, punk rock, like rock and roll. Play guitar, like you see. So like I was a musician, really into Hendrix and the Beatles and psychedelia, all this stuff. Pink Floyd was a big one. So all that stuff kind of led me down the path of like universalism. I am you as you are me. The universe is all one. All of these ideas that ultimately leave no accountability, so you could do whatever you want. And so that's what I did. And I eventually gave my life to God. When I was 22, I started visiting this charismatic church. I chased the girl into church, and I just never left. She ended up leaving, but I didn't. And God just transformed my life. And since then, it's just kind of been like, I've always been a very analytical person, like kind of pensive, very introverted, but always thinking about things. And that didn't change. God kind of used that to take me into the area of apologetics and kind of say, all right, you want to learn about something worthwhile, learn about the word of God, learn about the history of, of the church fathers and, the apostles and all this stuff. So, discovering people like Ravi Zacharias, discovering people like Frank Turek, all these people, it's a shame what happened with Ravi, but he, needless to say, his ministry blessed me. I can't deny it.
Bro. So put a pin in Ravi.
Yeah.
He was my number one, period.
100%.
Like that was it. And everybody has like a person they look up to in their life, and or whatever, they look at that person for answers or something. He was my guy. Yeah. I had finished 10 books from one person, and it was Ravi.
Wow.
And so, yeah, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah,
So
no,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah, man, it was a heartbreaking. It was a heartbreaking moment, but that's a whole. I think that's a whole podcast in itself,
Yeah.
right? Talking about Robbie. Um, but yeah, so then I just kind of continued down that road. I got really plugged into my church, was leading worship for a little while, a few years, and as I started to change my views on things socially, like let's say gay marriage being one of them, or um, gender roles, stuff like that. Even financial stuff, with tithing and stewarding things properly, you kind of naturally become a fiscal conservative in that way, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so then when politics started entering like kind of the Overton window of popular discussion, I kind of started seeing like, well, I'm not really educated on this, and I had just gone through a breakup, and I wanted to like really discover myself as a man. Like, what are my opinions? Who am I? Like, what do I believe in? What do I stand for? And I
Men
just
talk about politics.
yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, what can I do so that if I'm ever at like a cocktail party with billionaires, I know what I'm talking about, Not that I'll ever be there, but that was me at 21.
Yeah.
Like just in case for when I'm a millionaire. But essentially politics was the thing that popped up. It was politics and it was business. And I got into my Gary Vee stuff, but then I got into like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro and all these people, which I only found because I was watching liberal comedy, political comedy, like Trevor Noah and John Oliver and stuff. And I was like, this is funny, but like it's not teaching me anything. Let me dive deeper. Then I
Yeah.
find Ben Shapiro and I'm like, oh yeah, found it. And it all like lined up with my social beliefs and my Christian beliefs. And that's when I knew. I was like, there's overlap here. And at first it feels like, okay, this is right. Like objectively, republicanism is right. But then as you dive deeper into the nuances, foreign policy and all the different types of conservatism, paleo-conservatism, populism, all these things, you start to realize, okay, there's nuance here too, just like there's nuance in theology. And so now I had to discover myself in that area and say, well, now I know I'm a conservative. What do I believe about conservatism and to what extent? Because there are militant Christian conservatives who think they need to take over the world in the name of Jesus politically. And I don't know.
American flag around the cross.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm that. I honestly think that the only way anything gets solved in our world, let alone our country, is by Jesus' return. And so I'm willing to fight until that day comes. But I'm not banking on us taking over, us the Christians fighting like we're in Star Wars, fighting the Empire and defeating the world from sin. No, Jesus's job is to defeat the world from sin. He did that. He's coming back for his church. I think in the meantime, it's up to us to save as many people as we can and introduce them to God. And that's my dedicated role within politics. I know I'm totally off the base from your question, but I want to hit this. The reason that I've stayed so connected to politics is because I've seen the need for people on the right to hear the gospel that have just never heard it before. And so they already love their country. They already love the idea of God. They already have good family values and all these things. And they like the Bible as a book, but they've never had somebody present them a gospel and say, hey, give everything you have to God. Lay down your life, die to yourself and pick up your cross and follow him. Nobody's ever told them that. And so once they do, it's like a switch goes off in your head. It's like they're in their head. You can see it in their eyes. When I tell people the gospel who are like pretty conservative, they're like, you're right, man. Like, I can't deny it. You're right. Like, it all makes sense. It's a natural progression. And that's why I'm still involved in politics, because I think those people are worth saving too.
That's very interesting. That's interesting. I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming because a lot of times, we Christians who get into politics and are conservative, they're always like, we need to put this out there. This needs to be out there because we need to reach the people that aren't conservative.
Right.
And you're like, no, I want to go into conservative camps and discuss politics and break it down and all, but also more importantly, because I want to reach those conservatives with the gospel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that God showed me really recently, man, within the past, 6 months or so. I don't know how much you know about like Bryson Gray or Brandon Tatum and stuff, and this whole thing.
I know all about it.
All right, so yeah. It's funny because I had Ruslan on my podcast recently.
I watched that. That was a good one.
Bit about it, but that kind of awakened me a little bit, and I was like, "There's so many Christians that just don't believe, or so many conservatives rather, that just don't know how to believe in God properly. They don't
Yeah.
understand scripture. They don't understand theology. And nobody's there to help them. Everybody's looking at them as these conservative kind of like moguls, these like big influencers, and nobody's willing to correct them and say, hey, your theology is wrong. Like the Trinity is the triune God, 3 in 1. You know, God, Jesus is God. Like nobody's there to tell them that. And if they do, they feel like they're being attacked, which is a shame. But Ruslan made a great point, and he said like he doesn't think Bryson Gray is going to be the same in 10 years. Thinks he's going to have matured and kind of settled down, and I think that's a good thing because I think God works in us all that way. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I'm still a little thrown back from that because I literally had, but that answer though probably explains why I like your content so much. Because you are gospel focused and centered, that talks about politics, but also brings it back to make sure that we know what's what. We know what is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because even as conservative people who put themselves out on platforms, like their profiles have a lot to do with their political stance. So that's what people see.
Right.
But there's a way to do that. There's a way to do that where people see that, see your views on that stuff, but they also realize that that's secondary to you. You're more about God. You're more about getting the gospel out there. And people who are like really, really on that, besides you, maybe like the Korean Christian conservative, Kangmin Lee.
Hangman, that's homie.
I would love to get that guy on too.
I'll see if I can get him on here for you.
I think he does a good job at that. And other than that, I mean, guys like Crowder, yeah, he's very entertaining. He is outspoken about his faith when it comes up, but you know where I'm going with this. Like, there's a lot to him and to how he presents himself and puts himself out there that people aren't going to get the gospel first.
100%, 100%. And I have a suspicion that Crowder is very dedicated to spreading the gospel person to person. I have a suspicion that when it comes to the people he works with or his employees, he's very much about that. And that's one of the misconceptions I think a lot of people had about me. My pastor backs me very much, which I'm really grateful for. But a lot of people in my congregation were confused when I started posting about stuff like this. And when I started going to young Republican meetings and stuff and clubs, I was starting to see that people they had so many questions about my faith. Like it's almost like they'd never seen just like a regular Christian before. It's always like an extreme Jehovah's Witness or a Mormon or something out of the fray like that. And mind you, I'm in Jersey, but like the club that I belong to is in New York Midtown. So these are like Midtown New York Republicans. Yeah. It's hard to come by a devout Christian in Midtown New York City. So I think that was where I was like, there's a role for me to fill here. I'm on the board now. I'm one of 2 Christians on that board. And, people really look to me as somebody to inform anything that has to do with Christianity. They're like, okay, give us your take on this because this is your lifestyle, right? But along with that comes a lot of preconceived notions and a lot of responsibility. Like I can't like these YR parties. I'm sure like MAGA people can party, man. They can drink, they can party, and so like you almost have to be like. Remind yourself, like my testimony's first. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna hit on that cute Republican girl. Like the testimony comes first. Like I need to make sure I'm upholding that at all times, and that's where church community comes in handy so much because you want to be able to leave there and go to your church and then have fellowship with people who believe like you do, and say, all right, I'm still edified in my faith. I'm still reading my word. I'm still connected the way I'm supposed to God, and that's a fine line to walk. But it's so rewarding, man. It's so fulfilling. Like this last year, 10 months that I've been doing this content has been some of the most fulfilling times of my life.
Wow. That's awesome. Wow, that's good. Yeah, I'm still in that I'm not a part of anything politically officially.
What state are you in?
Jersey.
You're in Jersey?
Yeah, South Jersey. So really,
that's not Jersey, bro.
you know how it is. Jersey's two states, really,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
I
You're
was actually,
filthy.
I was actually just talking to a friend 2 days ago about like if the United States just split into a bunch of different countries,
Yeah.
that he was like, oh well, the East Coast northeast would be its own thing.
Hmm.
I said, well, that split between the on the eastern side would be between South and North Jersey because
Yep.
we already think we're two states to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to the pork roll versus Taylor ham debate, man. That's really
It's
what it
pork
comes
roll.
down to. It's Taylor
Pork roll.
ham, obviously. That's a
No.
fact.
Yeah, we about to change this whole show. Hold
I know,
on.
right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, yeah. So now that we've settled it's pork roll. Let's go to so. All right, so I see this in your about section. I kept my politics to myself for a long while as I worked as a designer and digital marketer until the George Floyd event hit the news cycle. At that point, I began to see the philosophy of BLM and the Marxist left leaking into the church, and even more worrisome, being advocated for from the pulpits. Um, I understand there's a lot that could be jumped into there, but first of all, when I read that and just talking to you, and hearing that you started, recently in the last 10 months, hats off to you, props to you for starting during something like George Floyd and all this stuff, and coming with a viewpoint that is probably going to get a lot of heat, especially in the beginning,
Yeah.
um, until people really get to know you and what you're about. Yeah, so props to that.
Well, the
Uh,
interesting thing is that when I did post about George Floyd, I didn't post anything counter to what the popular belief was, which was at the time before all the footage came out, this man is murdered in the street, right?
yeah,
What I opposed was this idea of silence is violence. And I just
yeah,
have
yeah.
a problem in general with authority. So my
I'm
whole
with you.
take on it was like, I'm gonna post a black tile, but it's gonna say something on it. It's not just gonna be a black square. So I posted like, um, I stand with George Floyd's message, right? And then the next thing was like there was a video circulating about George Floyd talking about love and how we have to stop killing each other and this and that. And I was like, if you want to honor George Floyd, honor the message that he was giving, which at the time that's all we knew about him was this little video. And that's what I posted. Whereas other people were talking about police brutality and giving statistics. Only what is it, 9 to 12 unarmed black men were killed by police by a white police officer in 2018. Those statistics. That was what was going all over right wing Instagram. Me, I was just like, you want to honor the guy, cool, but make sure you're honoring what he's saying. He loved God, according to this video. He was anti-violence, according to this video. That's what you should be listening to. And then from there, a lot of people were like upset, but then there was a lot of people that are like, thank you for saying that. And then as the tension built, I kind of just made a post that was just like, dear white friends, you don't have to be ashamed to be white. And like, dear black friends, you don't have to bank on your skin color for everything. And that was the tweet or the Instagram post that like split my audience. I started losing followers. People were hitting me up, telling me I was brainwashed. A lot of people that I've worked with for years as a designer just all of a sudden wanted nothing to do with me. But the first posts were not anything crazy, and it's because we didn't know anything. So I didn't want to jump ahead of the news cycle. It was just what it was. The guy was on the floor. We had a knee on his neck.
Yeah. Um, it is a shame how so many, like what you just said, you just gave good examples, but it's a shame how so many things immediately become, oh, well, that's because you're on the right. Oh, that's because you're on the left. Everybody throws all that, like the idea of when a video like that comes out, how about we don't jump to all these conclusions and we maybe wait a week or two
Yep.
for some things to come out, and then we can have a better, more informed thought process and opinions on it before we just go out and spouting a whole bunch of stuff publicly to our thousands and millions of followers. um, that type of way of thinking about things automatically is, oh well, you're this crazy alt-right conservative guy that doesn't care about people.
Yeah.
And uh, I mean, we do it to to the left too, but um, that's a shame. Like like that type of way of thinking is actually a good thing. Again,
Yeah.
this is me speaking. It's a good thing to wait for facts and to wait for more evidence to come out, because that's how you're able to come to a better conclusion, a better opinion about what just happened, what you think you just saw.
Right.
And so, and I mean, the Bible, there's a whole bunch of proverbs about being slow to speak, and waiting for information, being, and not being the first to talk about everything. Like there's a lot of wisdom in that,
Yeah.
but it's just seen as oh, that's just because you're a conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame. Like, that's just one example, but it's a shame how we're so split on so many things that just something like that has to be seen as a one side or the other.
Yeah, it's very sad that withholding judgment has become like a conservative thing, right? Like the ability to say, okay, I see that looks bad. Let me wait for the facts. That it seems to certain people, that you are trying to skirt around it, or like you're not trying to address it. But in reality, all it is like, I just want to know what actually happened. It's like when
Yeah.
you break up a fight and then you send both of them to the principal's office and then you like talk it out. It's like, we need to wait to get to the principal's office and talk it out before you just suspend one or expel one. You have to kind of have the proper process in order to do that. I do think that a big part of it that's complicit in it is the news cycle and the way social media is so rapid to spread things. It's almost gotten to the point now where the audience is as complicit as the influencer, because we're asking people like, yo, what's your take on this? What's your take on that? It's something
Yep.
that just happened today, and it leaves no time for research. This is the reason that the mainstream media is in the position that it's in. It's like, who's first to market, who's first to on the story. I mean, that's been something that's always been an issue in journalism, but until we
Yeah.
had the internet and millions of people could see within seconds, that it's become a kind of a detriment to our society.
I gotta be honest. As now that we're on, this trail a little bit, that is that's been a struggle that I have with reaction videos.
Mm,
That's why, like, other than if you're reacting to like a new music video or something that's come out, I don't really like people doing that. I don't like it because I don't think it's really a wise thing. If you're really preaching like, I'm a Christian and I want to have the right view about things and I want to get all the facts straight, and I don't care about your emotions, and I just want facts, then why are you also on your platform? And I'm saying this in my mind, thinking about conservative, public figures.
right.
Um, why are you so quick to just jump on a reaction video to something that just came out?
Right.
Like, be different and be the guy that waited a week or two to then react about a big story.
Right. Well, I mean, so I agree with you. I think I have to give credit where credit is due to people like Ben Shapiro, who will wait before they post anything. Daily Wire, I've been following them for like their entire existence since they were made, and they do take the time. They won't just come out with a statement because something happened. It'll take them a little while before they get the facts, and then they'll report the facts, and they'll say, this is what we know right now. Things like that can mitigate a lot of emotion or risk away from the situation. But I think what you're seeing is a lot of people trying to get to the top of this new industry that's formed, which is right-wing commentary. We're all trying to struggle to get to be the next Candace, the next Ben Shapiro. Whether or not we like them or not is not relevant. They paved a path. And now that there's a path, now that there is a Steven Crowder who had more streams on the DNC than the DNC did.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. Now that there's him, it's like sky's the limit. And it's just a matter of who's going to make it next. And so now you have a bunch of people that are sitting around, a bunch of capitalist-minded go-getters, which is a good thing, being like, I got to be first on this story. I need all the dirt on it, blah, blah, blah. But it's a double-edged sword for sure. It's just something that we need to learn as consumers, which I think we're going to learn the hard way, Not some people are full of it, and not everybody has the best intentions when it comes to commentary. There's some fringe groups on the right that have all these great ideas about, you know, foreign policy and fiscal conservatism, but then when it comes down to race, they're like identitarians and they think that America's a white ethno state, and like that's
Yeah.
like
It's like, bro, what?
very weird stuff. Yeah, but these people consider themselves mainstream conservatives. They consider themselves part of the conservative right. It's like, you're not a conservative. You're, if anything is alt right, that's alt right. You know, so it's just a matter of a new market that's opened up, and everybody's trying to race to the top.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me bring this up because I'm interested in your input on this.
For sure.
I'm somebody who is very into if I'm into something, if I follow something, if I believe in something or like it, I want to promote it somehow. And usually that comes down to I like to get hats or shirts or something that, you know, so whenever I'm wearing a shirt or I'm wearing something, period, I'm 98% of the time I'm very specific about it. Like I know I'm aware of what I'm wearing, and I'm wearing it for a purpose. Like this is my brand, by the way. But
So
so uh so when I do that, so I'm very much about that. Now, because I'm like that, there's a part of me that I'm like, oh, I want to go out and buy, you know, Crowder's stuff. I want to wear a Charlie Kirk shirt that just says a big conservative across the front. I want to go out and buy, you know, Candace's shirt. I am going to actually go buy a Time of Soul shirt, but like I want to wear all this stuff because I want to represent what I actually really like and who I follow, and I know that me buying that stuff, you know, even helps them more because I'm financially supporting them.
yeah.
And by my finances helping them, they produce, you know, more content, which is what I'm into. So it's, you know, it's a whole thing. I get it.
Yeah.
I want to do that. Now, my pushback to wearing and promoting political things like that again goes back to I'm more concerned about my Christian witness. So if I have if I have a neighbor who is, you know, super leftist and I know that, and I go walking around the neighborhood with my conservative shirt on, is that going to shut down a conversation? You know what I
Right.
mean?
So
So
I
go
think
ahead.
it's just a matter of like, how much do you believe the things that you want to believe or that you believe in? How much are you willing to stand for them? And are you willing to risk offending somebody on the jump, right? I think there's a degree of nuance and wisdom that you have to take, right? So if it's a big shirt that says conservative on it or socialism sucks, I'd say don't wear that to Sunday service. You know, I'd say maybe that's not a good idea. Or don't wear that to like men's ministry where there could be new people. You know, I'd say maybe go with a button up or something like a grown man would wear. But I'm just being stupid. But no, I do think there's a degree of nuance for that, but I also think that there's nothing wrong with it. You know, I think it's a matter of like personal preference. If you like the shirt, you like the design, you want to support them, maybe it's not even a shirt that you get. Maybe you get the Leftist Tears mug, or you get, you know, the Crowder mug or something, and you support that way. But I'm all about the merch, man. Like I buy merch specifically because I know it helps the brand and I know it helps the content. I don't buy it necessarily to wear it. I have like 3 hoodies from different podcasts that I love, and I don't wear them ever because I kind of feel like I'm kind of a snob when it comes to fashion and stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to wear a graphic tee. Like I want to look like a 32-year-old, you know. So
I'm all about the graphic tees.
yeah, well, you got the swag for that, man. I don't like. I feel too corny for that, but but yeah, I think it's just a matter of preference, man. And I don't. I think if somebody's gonna be offended by your T-shirt, it's like you were never really going to gain any kind of significant trust with them anyway. I really do think that. Like, if you're wearing a T-shirt that says like USA and somebody's like pointing out your T-shirt and telling you that's kind of problematic, odds are you're not going to have a very fruitful conversation about the gospel, you know, with that person. So
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of being, you know, just being wise with where you wear it. You know, I definitely don't wear it in New York City. And then other than that, man, it's just up to you.
So with that conversation, and this goes for wearing stuff, this goes for posting stuff online.
Mm.
It's just the idea that I also battle internally with why am I so why do I spend so much energy and time on thinking about, oh, should I wear this or should I not wear this, or should I post this or not post this, when I have friends, people I know and people I love, friends who are wearing and they're Christians, self-proclaimed Christians, wearing and posting things that are just crazy left stuff,
Yeah.
and they're totally okay with it. So part of me is like, why should I hold back from posting what I know is better?
Right.
When they're totally fine doing it.
So
And
I think you have a big heart. I think that comes from having a big heart, and I think it's one of the problems that kind of encapsulate, like that little example kind of encapsulates the right side or conservatism as a whole, where we're more reactive, we're reactionary to what the left is doing instead of taking initiative and doing whatever it is that we think is right. So I think it comes from a good place. It comes from the place of not wanting to offend anybody, but the way I look at it is like, well, I'm right though. Like I'm not perfect.
yeah.
Like I'm not
I
saying
got
that
you.
I have all the answers, but like on these issues, like I'm right. Like America's a good place to live, all things considered. We have our share of troubles. Like you want to wear a Go America shirt, like I'm right. This is a great country, regardless of what. And if not, like you can feel free to not look at my shirt. And that's kind of the way I look at it. It's not out of maliciousness. It's just out of representing who I am accurately. And like I said, a big part of it has to do with where I am when I'm wearing it. I'm never going to go out for for drinks with my family and wear like a Trump t-shirt because it might bring unnecessary attention to me and my family. And I don't want to put them through that. But if I'm going to like a little meeting and it's a meetup with like the young Republicans and stuff, I'll get decked out. I'll wear my, freedom shirt, I'll put on my MAGA hat and I'll chill. But it's just a matter of like how I want to come off that day,
Interesting. It's almost like you're putting on your mood.
That's fashion, man.
Yeah.
For sure.
Interesting. Huh. Okay. So and you end your about section with, I hope you enjoy the conversations, whether you agree with the topics or not. I wish more of these conversations were just that.
Yeah.
And didn't come off, because I have such a hard time with having these conversations online.
Yeah.
Because one, practically, I just don't want to spend the time doing it. I'm not going to go and spend all the time to go look up links that you want me to prove my point and all this stuff back and forth. Like, I'm just not going to do that. I have a wife and 2 kids and a full-time job and a couple businesses. Like, I'm not going to do that.
I'd say that's a pretty good excuse to not do that.
And I already get yelled at all the time for being on my phone too much. So, I don't want to do that online. I also know that there's a whole bunch of other people viewing this conversation that I'm having with you online. And I would much rather have stuff in person. Now, obviously, this past year has kind of thrown a wrench in that a little bit, because not everybody's comfortable with coming around.
Right.
But that's my other thing with not posting stuff online, because I just don't want to. Yes, when you post something like that, you're expecting a reaction, but it's almost like I actually don't want a reaction because I just don't want to. I don't want to engage with the reaction. You know what I'm saying?
I know the feeling, man. I 100% relate to that. I think it's got to come from defining your terms before you start posting, right? So you have this podcast, which is amazing, and you're doing awesome stuff with it. How far do you want to take this? Is this something you do as a hobby because you genuinely enjoy it and maybe you don't necessarily need to make money off of it? Or is this something that you want to take seriously as a business? Either one is fine, by the way. Like, I'm not saying like you have to do this and you have to. What I'm saying is like just define your expectations and define your goals. Because if you do want this to become a business and you want it to create profit, which I don't know if you have monetized this yet, but then that's going to require you taking clips from this and putting it on Instagram and getting those reactions and making those waves, because ultimately when it comes to internet land, that's what pays the bills. pays the bill. What pays the bills is being in the zeitgeist, being in the conversation, giving people something to talk about. It's unfortunate, but that's where we are, which is why I like to have my own set of rules. Like, I will never cross X line in order to create content, right? I'll never lie about what I believe in to get followers. I'll never do that. I'll never pretend that I'm somebody I'm not to get followers. I'll never talk about things that I'm still struggling with in my spiritual life and act as if I have the answers in order to get followers. I'll never do that. So you'll never see me talking about, being anti-pornography and stuff like that, because I'm 32, I'm single, like, I have struggles in that area, and I'm very open about that. So I need to understand, like, you have to be able to pull the curtain back on my life and say, I'm sorry, I just got a crazy text. I'm sorry. You got to be able to pull the curtain back on my life and say, okay, he's telling the truth about all these things. And that's the one thing that I've kind of set as a standard when it comes to arguing with people, man. If I don't know them, I'll engage a little bit. I'll invite them to go on IG Live with me so we can see each other face to face at least and talk about it. If they don't want to and they just want to keep insulting me, I block them. And if I know them, then I go back and forth a couple times, and then I say, look, since you know me, feel free to call me anytime and we can talk about this like adults and we can discuss it at length. I'll buy you a beer, or I'll buy you a drink, I'll buy you coffee. And if they don't want to take you up on that, then you don't. But I think that's my line. I'm not going to sit there and go back and forth with a troll. I'm like I said, like you, I don't have the time to do that. I have to build a future for when I do get married and when I do have kids. But yeah. Short of that, that's my line in the sand for sure.
I think that's good. And what I'm hearing from you is that it's very organized in in your approach. Your approach is very systematic and organized, which I think is probably where my failure comes in a lot, because I don't have a lot of that organized like that. Mm. In my mind, I always kind of have a way that I don't want to react, or and things I don't want to say online. But it's not like a set, like you said, a set list of rules that for me personally, that I'm just not going to go against.
Well, that's come with like a lot of time online, and this is even before politics. Like I used to run a Christian blog back maybe 10 years ago. And then after that, I was doing like digital marketing content and doing stuff like that. Okay. So I always had that awareness of like, I need to utilize my time in the best way possible, and be able to create as much content as possible, engage with the audience when it's fruitful, and then just not engage with the audience when it's gonna do more damage than good.
Yeah,
for sure. But so man, I think...
so you know.
Say that again.
No, it's just so you know how you've gotten there, because you know how it works, and you understand how the online system works. I have an idea of that, but I also don't want to necessarily, and this is just being honest, like I don't really want to invest the time and money and energy needed to make it a whole big thing. Like this podcast is really because one, I do interviews because I want to just really just have conversations with these people. Like I have people on that either I find really interesting and I want to just talk to them, or I know them personally, but I think other people are going to find them interesting. So nice. I want to, talk with them. Because I don't really like doing like I don't really like doing like a organized what's the word, formal interview. I like to actually like just have a conversation with somebody.
Likewise.
And so that's kind of just what I do. But I also, like you said, taking clips and posting on Instagram and your stories, and then making it with these fancy backgrounds or having a text on there. Like I know that all that stuff would help all my branding and all that out, but I'm just not going to spend the time to do it. And if I reach 100 people an episode, 1,000 people, or 20,000, I'm okay with it. But I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. Maybe organic, but I don't even know if that's right. That's just kind of I, and then I also battle with. But if I'm not doing that, then because I have a small platform, and when I reach out to somebody that's bigger and I try to get them to talk with me, they could look at my profile and be like, oh well, he's not even serious. He's nothing. I don't want to talk to him, so I'm not even gonna answer him. I've gotten that many times. Uh,
There's a lot of those for sure, but I do think for the most part, people are looking for consistency.
yeah,
So, somebody like I was shocked that like Rusan answered at all, and
that was
I think
dope. That was
that
really
was
good.
a dream, man. Like I watch his content. It's rare to have people on that like, I actually listen to this person, and then all of a sudden I'm talking to them and they're on the screen.
Yeah,
But that I feel like what they look for is that you're constantly putting something up and looking to improve. Short of that, I don't really think that they necessarily look for numbers if the messaging is right, right? If you're a brother in Christ and you're trying to communicate the gospel, I find it very hard to believe that somebody who's a bigger, I guess Christian YouTuber would deny, coming on your channel just because of numbers. I could see that maybe if it was the digital marketing industry or something like that, it's all about numbers or
yeah,
like just strictly ads. But in this area, in this space, I think you're good, man. If you genuinely just want to have honest conversations, that's what they're looking for. They're just looking for numbers, and then, I mean, they're just looking for consistency. And if you can offer them something like, hey, this is going to be, we're going to talk about these topics, and if they like it, they can use the clips themselves. It's a win-win. So it doesn't waste anybody's time.
cool. That's good advice. You've given a lot of good advice.
I appreciate that.
So I think we're coming up on an hour, so that's probably a good time to close it down. But I'm going to throw some rapid fire questions at you.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so here's the first one: 2024 Republican Party. Who do you want to run, and then who do you think will be running?
I want an older, more refined, more calm Donald Trump to run. Who I think will actually run is probably DeSantis.
Okay,
Maybe somebody that's coming out of the blue. I don't think Gates is there yet, but I think he's thinking about it. He's maybe 2028 or something. Um,
no
but yeah,
Candace.
I think it's Trump or DeSantis.
Okay, so you would want Trump, but you think it might be DeSantis.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it would be a smart play for him.
no team up. A Trump DeSantis, DeSantis Trump. Trump wouldn't be
Could
vice
be.
president.
Trump would never be vice president,
No.
but I think it would be great if he had DeSantis as a vice president. Only thing I'm worried about is effectively DeSantis could do more where he is now as senator
Yeah,
than more than he would as vice president. So I don't see why he would take it other than just for the experience.
gotcha. Um, podcasts. We'll do this first. Podcast recommendations for people, like your top
Ooh.
three.
Oh, I've been obsessed with this guy, Stephen Bankars, who is a guy that came out of the New Age movement, and he was like one of the best-selling New Age bloggers, like out of like the 2010s. Dude was making like 30 grand a month, like on New Age
Wow.
content. Gave it all up when he gave his life to God. Tells his whole testimony, and now he actively talks about the dangers of the New Age within Christianity and how it kind of is seeping into it in ways that you wouldn't even expect. Dude is brilliant. He's young. He's got energy. Dude's got a huge future. That's the one that I've been obsessed with. Mike Winger. I'm sure you know Mike Winger.
Yeah,
If you don't know Mike Winger and you're
I was
watching,
listening to him earlier.
yeah, you need to at least do like dedicate a night to like just listen to a bunch of Mike Winger because that's a wise man. And also, who's a good podcast. If you're into funny stuff, there's a great podcast, a comedy podcast that's clean. Um, Although both comics are not always clean, but it's called what is it called? Hey Babe with Chris DiStefano and the guy from Impractical Joker, Salvicano. Really
Ah, okay.
silly, really
Yeah.
silly. It just they don't talk about anything serious. It's just a good way to get out of the fray of politics and all that. And they're just really good, and they're super funny.
See, my comedy one would be Babylon B.
Babylon B, that's a great, yeah, they're
Yeah,
great. For sure.
Last rapid fire. Your top three. Well, this will be a two-part. Your current top three authors and your all-time top three authors.
Ooh, that's good. Current top three authors would have to be C.S. Lewis. I've been on a binge of his lately. I'm reading the new Michael Knowles right now, and Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
All time, I honestly think it's the same. You know, although Jonathan Haidt is probably in there with the most recent ones. Jonathan Haidt has a phenomenal book that breaks down just the way we raise children in our society. I forget the name of the book, but I'll get it to you. And who else? I'd say honestly, Gary Vee, man. Just read Gary Vee. Read Crushing It. Because it'll just give you a grasp on like the business side of everything and the business side of the internet and what the pros are for the internet. It's very easy to spot the cons of the internet. But to find out what's actually good about it, he does a really good job of laying it out.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Plug everything you got.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on here, man. My name is Angel Quiroz, Quiroz. If you want to find me, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. Now I'm on Rumble even. It's all _ Angel, Quiroz. All of my links are on my website. If you want to help the podcast and you want to help me kind of create more content, do more stuff, maybe remote location, stuff like that, join the Patreon. Link is also on my website. All of those links are on angelquiroz.com, Quiroz. Thank you so much, man.
Sweet. Appreciate it.
Thank
you, brother. I'm glad you answered me. And because again, like I said, some people don't, but I'm glad you got back to me and we were able to set this up and made it happen.
Of course, man.
And maybe there'll be another future one. That'd be pretty sweet.
For sure, man. Anything you need, just shoot me a little DM.
Awesome. All right, brother. God bless you.
All right, man. God bless.